This is my gas blowback krytac Kriss Vector, and after I filmed the previous full unboxing and review of it, I had a plethora of comments and tags in not only my video, but also the Heavy Recoil Discord, where people who are well versed and well knowledgeable about this thing told me that it is doomed to explode. And not that the review was bad, but that the actual construction of the krytac Kriss Vector, it almost just seems like krytac looked at all of the QC and the quality control and we're just like, meh, just go ahead and send it on out. And today, in this video, I have spent the last better part of like 4 days doing my best to solve these problems so that I can go ahead and showcase them on video for you. So this will be kind of like your one-stop shop in order to keep this thing from blowing itself up. I do have to take this entire thing down and apart so I can showcase what I did, but when it comes to this review, what I need you to do is just be nice to me, please. I am not a professional, and there are going to be a ton of people in the Heavy Recoil Discord that are going to showcase some photos that I'll try and drop here, and obviously name drop so that they can get credit, that are going to do a better job with this than I do. They have better tools, better experience, and to be totally honest with you, I just did what I could with what I had available, and I think I did an alright job. The problem with the Kriss Vector, honestly, out of the box, as opposed to a lot of the other issues that it has, and there are a few upgrade parts in the future that you're going to need in order to make this thing really usable, there are some quality control problems that we have to address first, which for the most part are just tolerances and polishing and sanding and solving a lot of the moving parts inside of the gas blowback vector that, if not taken care of, are going to cause parts to wear down on other parts and cause this thing not to have the most longevity that it can have. And like 99.999% of it is all inside of the lower. And weirdly enough, the advanced blowback system or recoil system that, well, when it comes to their quality control, it's not all that advanced because they did a terrible job. Now we're going to progressively start taking this entire thing apart, and I'm going to show you everything that I did, and then I'll throw up a video on screen or a photo of what the product looked like before I messed with it, what it looks like now, and then I'll try and also showcase a better image from somebody on the Heavy Recoil Discord. And like I said, I'll try and drop whoever's name it is that dropped that photo, or at least that I see drop that photo, so they get credit for it as well. We'll take out the advanced blowback housing, or I guess blowback system. We'll also take out the nozzle and the nozzle housing, and be careful of those small little bearings that I just dropped all over the floor. Hold on. Now, like I said, a majority of this all has to do with the blowback system, because those are all of your moving parts. The first one of which that we had to modify is the nozzle housing. There are 3 sections on some nozzle housings and 2 on others that you're going to have to modify. For example, this is the version 2 nozzle. There was a version 1. The version 1 requires 2 modifications, and I'll show a photo of that up on screen, what the difference looks like. And mine is the version 2. Basically, the difference is, in the version 2, there is a notch cut into the ceiling of the nozzle. I don't know if you see that small rectangular notch at the top. That just means it's a version 2, because they were having some serious issues where it was wearing down on the nozzle, and they had went ahead and solved that problem in their version 2. What's crazy is all of the other problems still arose, and they didn't take care of any of that except for that section, which is wild. So if you do have the version 1, you're going to have to file this down to make this so much smoother. But in the version 2, that's not an issue. There is, however, a modification that needs to be done to both the version 1 and the version 2, and that is this small section right here. This is a very sharp little edge of metal at the lower of the nozzle housing, and basically what this does is it glides over the router every time that it pulls a BB out of the feed lips. When it glides over the router, you could see that small section of metal goes just over your router, and what it will slowly start to do, I don't know if you can actually see mine, is wear down on the base of the router, just simply destroying your mags. So go ahead, take a file, and I filed it upwards first so that it had more of like a smooth ride over the nozzle, or I'm sorry, over the router, and then I filed down the sharp edge that I made so that it didn't tear at the back of the nozzle, and that's your first modification. The second one is actually these screws. Now, these unfortunately, the flathead screws, they keep the nozzle stable, and they slightly protrude into the nozzle. When you do take them out, you're going to notice that they kind of don't sit flush on the edge of the nozzle, and they are a little bit like rough on the edges, some protruding edges and whatnot, and these actually slide on the inside track, if you could see, of the vector the entire time to stabilize the front of the nozzle and lead the rear of the nozzle where those bearings are, and that will slowly just eat away and shred out the inside of those tracks, causing it to not slide as smoothly, and can cause issues with returning to battery, or it can cause issues with completely resetting the hammer. So that's just not good. So that is the second modification you're going to have to do to that nozzle. The next modification you're going to need to make is to the advanced blowback or recoil system, and it's just where the nozzle once again connects with the recoil system. A lot of these moving parts just have issues. So the nozzle actually rides those bearings up against this recoil system, and when it pushes up against the recoil system, it will cause it to retract down into the base of itself. The issue is, however, when these bearings roll across the edge to push it downwards, this edge is absolutely atrocious. Now, these are my edges, which are slightly more refined and a little bit more polished, but the amount of pitting, the amount of sharp texture, and the amount of just roughness and this thick, nasty coating they put on it that is just slowly causing the nozzle to ride in an uneven pathway causes the blowback system not to function the same every single time it recoils, and then when you're under low pressure, it starts to have problems cycling. When you're slowly wearing it down, it'll cause the nozzle to ride on the tracks incorrectly. It's a disaster. So you got to make sure that you sand this down and polish it. It doesn't have to be totally to the base, but just the points at which the nozzle is going to connect with the base and then start to press it downwards into the lower receiver. And that is modification number 3. It's got to be done on both sides, and I recommend keeping them on so that you keep them nice and even so you don't cause a level issue. But again, like I said, I filed, sanded, and polished it the best that I can. I could do a better job, but I'm just a nutcase with a bunch of tools that I'm not really great at using. Now, the next part requires me to take this entire thing apart, and if I'm being totally honest with you, is probably the longest and hardest process of this entire modification series. I would also say this is probably the part that I did the worst on, and I am the least proud of, but, you know, I did my best. You got to drop out these 3 screws, and then you got to drop out these 3 screws on the opposing side. And then afterwards, we have to take off the bolt release and the bolt catch, and then the spring that our charging handle is connected to. So we'll get to that next. We'll drop this off and we'll pull this out, and we're going to drop our bolt release now. There are a setting of 4 screws that we have to get to. In case no one's ever seen how to pull this apart, the majority of the Kriss Vector is extremely easy to piece apart, but obviously this can be a little bit more confusing for people, so I get that. And then this should just pop right off after we loosen the 4. I don't even have to take these out, actually, which is super cool. And that'll all just stay connected together. And then lastly, all we need to do is grab a screwdriver head, and we're going to attack this screw here. We have to loosen and release the entire blowback housing from the plastic lower receiver, and that'll just pop right out. It's under spring tension, so just be careful you don't strip it. Bang. Okay, be super careful. This entire lower should now just piece itself out. The barrel at the front is a little bit tight to get out, and here is the metal interior to the Kriss Vector. Now we have another series of screws we got to pop out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 from both sides. I'm going to do one side because you don't actually need both to show it to you, but you got to take off both sides in order for you to file and sand it down. And absolutely wild. I'm the fastest screwdriver unscrewer that you've ever seen. The entire plate should just pop off, and then you'll see all of these silver tracks that I have filed down. Basically, we need to file down any parts where the advanced recoil system slides in the tracks, as well as any parts where the bearings will slide in the tracks, because these are just a mess. They are burred to crud. They are also, they got like this like black coating on the inside that's on the outside of here, and it causes friction. There's like some pitting going on, some metal that's like pilling up. You can kind of even still see some of the areas where it's filed and polished just from previously. It's just they just didn't do a good job at all, like at all. So you have to go in there and file out all of the edges and ledges, and then you have to polish out the inside channels. And now it may look like a pretty rough job. I couldn't get all of it, and you can still see some of the locations where there is some still like solid pitting there, but nothing's going to make contact with that section, so I didn't go too crazy. The best thing to do, though, is to take that bearing, and this is the track the bearing's going to roll in, and roll it down the inside. It should be super smooth. Roll it down the lower half, and there shouldn't be anything catching it or any bumps, and then roll it along the upper half. And that should increase the longevity, even if I didn't do a perfect job, more than it obviously would the other way. Now, the lower half is just the channel that this guy runs through. And what you want to do is make sure that's super smooth too, because this is metal, this is plastic, and if it's pitting, it's just going to cause the plastic to get eaten away at the inside of it, and it will just, it'll just get gross and start to fall apart. So again, same thing, file it down, make it nice and smooth, and then run this guy along the inside of both channels and both sides, and make sure that it's smooth. On the left side panel and on the right side panel, you can see that I did actually the same exact thing. And like I said, it's not perfect, but it's better than it was before. And I would love to keep going on it, but I need a little bit of a break, and I might even try and fine tune it if I can get myself some more electric tools and stuff. But that's what I got for now. Again, like I said, I really hope this helps a lot of people. This is just one of those things that I personally think is totally unacceptable, especially when you're releasing a replica that's going to become not only this popular, but that does cost the price that it costs. These things should be taken care of. The quality control needs to be there. It's just an extra couple steps. I'm not a manufacturer, but I'm telling you, this is just unacceptable. It should not be in a position where after playing with it, it just starts to destroy itself. Now, these aren't the only upgrades either that I was recommended. I was also recommended a bunch of aftermarket parts that are going to make it run even better. These personally will help make it better, but more than anything, it's longevity purposes. This isn't going to totally increase your gas efficiency and things like that. It's just going to make it a little bit more fail-proof. So if you want to, if I get enough people who ask for it, I may explore some of the aftermarket parts that are going to make this thing function so much better. Like, you name it. I haven't yet, because it is a little bit on the pricier side. It's going to cost me a pretty penny. So if you guys are interested in seeing a series or an episode where I check out all of the aftermarket parts that'll make it better, just let me know in the future. And yeah, I guess what I said is right, but roast me on my work in the comments below. Thank you to everyone in the Heavy Recoil Discord for bringing this to my attention. Again, as long as it keeps it running longer, I'm happy. And I guess I'll catch you guys in the next adventure. Peace.